take this opportunity to invite Ms. Astha Mir Singh. Ms. Astha Mir Singh is the Senior Advisor at Education USA, USIEF, New Delhi. She pursued her bachelor's in psychology from Sophia College, Mumbai, master's in education counseling psychology from the University of Mumbai, and MA in psychology of education from the University of Bristol, United Kingdom. Ms. Astha Mir Singh has been working in the career counseling field for years now and has spearheaded many projects on life skill training, study abroad, and career counseling senior advisor. Education USA and United States India Education Foundation and Mr. Jim and Laughlin co-chair IC3 conference to speak on profiling the US university system and undergraduate admission practices.
I hope everyone is a little bit warmed up by the tea and coffee. Okay, so the next session, we hope to illuminate some important information about the U.S. system itself. And today, throughout the day, we're hoping that the sessions that are presented are bringing together some of the bigger picture of the options that your students have. The United States it's a huge landscape for higher education. So in this initial section, I really want to leave most of the time for Astha, who is an expert in U.S. education, to get into some of the nuts and bolts as well. But what I would like to do is take maybe 5 or 10 minutes and provide some of the background regarding the system itself. Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and put up all of these points here. So the U.S. higher education system is one of the most well-established academic systems globally. And I think that's well known. But one of the, I think, most daunting aspects about the system is that there are more than 4,500 accredited institutions in the United States. That's a lot of options, just in one country system. So it's important to have a little bit of background about what that system itself entails. There are about 20 million students enrolled in institutions of higher education within the United States, and that includes international students. That's across the board, right? To give you a little bit of a sense of the scale. In my background, and coming from about 15, 16 years of admission, advising, and student services work at a number of U.S. universities, one of the ever-present transitional challenges for students, particularly coming from India, and that was the largest part of my work on the university side was with Indian students, was the transition from the philosophy of education here in India, particularly in the national and the state board system schools, that is very examination focused, it's very pointed, it's very structured, largely lecture based and study based and memorization based. The US system, generally speaking, of course, is one that really espouses a philosophy of critical thinking, problem solving, debate, interaction. So there is a bit of a cultural transition that is often needing to be made when students arrive to the United States. But I think this is also one of the aspects that is the most attractive to students coming to the United States, is this idea that, going back to my opening address, of exploration and a forum to ask questions and truly to debate, right? So oftentimes professors in an academic setting, in some cases they would be preferring a student to call them by their first name. You know, that's not a common occurrence here, for example. They would encourage a student to interact with them on a regular basis and almost at a peer level, right? So there is some cultural transitioning that needs to happen from that context. This is a little bit tough to see, but I wanted to share some geographical context within the US system as it relates to international students. So as you can get a sense of where the largest groups of foreign students coming to the United States are coming to study. And what you may not be able to see there is that the top destinations, the largest numbers of international students coming to the US are studying at universities in California on the West Coast, followed by New York on the East Coast, and then Texas, which is in the southern region. And then you can get a sense of where some of the other sort of concentrations of international students are coming to the US. Now, much like India, the United States geographically is huge, and there's a major diversity in climate, in culture, in the way of life that exists within the US context. So this gives you a little bit of a sense of the basic regions, and actually goes a little bit further beyond. So when you're thinking about having discussions with parents and students from an advising context, some of the localities will come up in the regions, from the Northeast to the Middle Atlantic to the Southeast to the West. So it is important to familiarize yourself with some of the geographical context that exist. And in the limited time we have here today, of course, we're not going to be able to get into all of these. But this is easily to be researched and to look at that. But the ways of life in these particular areas are something to consider. Is the student coming from an urban area? Are they used to a rural community? Is it a suburban community? And what is the university community like? Is it in a large city? Is it in a rural area itself? These are important questions to think about as it relates to finding the best fit university, not just from a rankings perspective, but these are the other aspects that we strongly encourage career and college guidance counselors to keep in mind, teachers, principals, that they're not just thinking about the name or a brand of a university, but they're thinking about these other contexts as well. So there are a number of different types of universities within the United States system. You have everything from vocational and technical colleges. Vocational meaning those that espouse education in, let's say, cosmetics or hairdressing, something to this effect, and really there's a wider range of programs within that as well. Community colleges is a concept that is huge within the United States and actually growing amongst international students. When we say community colleges, these are typically two-year institutions, okay? Two-year institutions that provide a pathway to a four-year, more recognizable university. Community colleges typically are less expensive, but still provide a very well-founded education from an academic standpoint and provide transferability to a bachelor degree. And we'll get into the degree types in just a moment. And then, of course, within the college and university section, those, when we say a four-year college or university, that is the standard in the United States. It's rare for a student to graduate with a bachelor's degree in under 4 years. Some programs might take them a little bit longer, but the standard is 4 years. So there are colleges and universities. Sometimes there's some confusion about what is the difference between a college and university. A college versus a university, that really doesn't indicate status of any kind. It doesn't indicate that a university is better than a college. It has something to do with the structure of that institution. A university is typically an institution that is consisting of a number of colleges. A university would have perhaps a college of business, a college of liberal arts, a college of engineering. But in many cases, there can be a standalone institution that carries the name college. That says nothing about its reputation or its ability to deliver a quality education, right? So it's important to look into what the philosophy of each institution is and to understand that as well. And of course, within the four-year university environment, you have public colleges and universities, and then private colleges and universities. Again, there can be some misunderstanding about what that means. Private or public has nothing to do, there's no connotation for quality. Okay, it really means how is it structured and how is it funded. A public institution often is funded in large part by tax dollars from either the state or mostly the state. Okay? There can be some differences in cost of education as it relates to public versus private universities. So whereas a public university might be largely funded through tax dollars through the state, perhaps of New York, California, Pennsylvania, a private university is largely funded by the donor base, its alumni donations, and the tuition that is generated from its student population. The type of university, again, to sum up, is more dictated by the structure and the funding source, not necessarily the quality of the institution. And that's an important distinction. So the types of degrees, and this is critical to understand. Generally speaking, undergraduate and graduate, those are the two larger umbrellas that you need to keep in mind from a U.S. university system. Undergraduate, we're talking about those programs that enroll students directly after high school. After class 12, a student would go into an undergraduate program that typically yields a bachelor degree. That could be a Bachelor of Arts, a Bachelor of Science, and there can be many other types of bachelor degrees. Those are the most common. Within the undergraduate setting, one term that I will put out there for those who may not be familiar is the associate degree. I mentioned a community college. An associate degree is typically a 2-year degree that is roughly 50% of a bachelor degree. Right? So if you're looking at the standard bachelor degree in the US being 4 years, an associate degree is half of that. So a community college oftentimes would result in an associate degree that could then be transferred to a 4-year university, and in an additional 2 years, a student can finish with a BA, a BS, or whatever the type of bachelor degree that the student is pursuing. In terms of graduate is a large umbrella, but this essentially means degrees that come post-bachelor's, after the bachelor degree. Master's degree, doctoral degrees, okay, and there are, of course, some professional degrees that come in that area as well. The MD, Doctor of Medicine, the JD, the Juris Doctor, going into law, okay? So those are the large frameworks to keep in mind. So I'm going to turn it over to Asta here, and I just want to put in a quick plug. This is certainly not a promotional presentation by any stretch, but I think for those who are advising in the U.S. context, Education USA and USIEF as a whole is a great resource. In large part, most of the resources are free and they are objective. They're funded by the State Department and very much supported by the government of the United States. Of course, they're to promote U.S. education, but to do it in an objective way and to promote every institution in the United States. It's not an agent, it's not a private counselor in that way. They're truly there to assist students find the best fit institution if the US is something that they're interested in. So let me turn it over to Asta.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. I am very, very excited and honored to be at the IC3 Regional Forum here at the school. And I'm happy to present this session with Jim. We are going to be taking questions towards the end, so please do let us know if you have any queries for us. I am the Senior Advisor at Education USA in New Delhi. Just as Jim mentioned, we are supported by the US government, so we're not a private agency, and we are not a university. So we do not really offer any courses for students. We help students to apply to US universities after grade 12. Okay, so if you're going for a bachelor's or an associate degree, a master's, PhD, we help students to apply to those kind of colleges and those kind of programs. Our mission in India is to provide students with information which is accurate, current, and comprehensive, but most importantly, unbiased. Okay, so I'm going to be giving you examples. They could be from one university or another, but we don't certainly represent any one university in the US. In India, we're in 7 cities, so please feel free to reach out to any of us. We believe that the school community is Friends of Education USA. We work very closely with school counselors in North India, because that's where the head office is, but you're happy to connect with us anywhere in India, okay? So today we're just going to give you an overview of the undergraduate admissions process, the admissions cycle, the application for the US. Okay, now just as Jim mentioned, there are different kinds of schools in the US. Okay, so I'm not going to go into detail of that, but I just want to mention one particular kind of college, which is the Liberal Arts and Sciences School. Okay, we're going to be having a session with Ashoka and Plaksha a little later in the day to talk about liberal arts education, but a lot of parents, a lot of students feel that liberal arts is to do with humanities only. It is not the case. A lot of colleges that are liberal arts and sciences also offer STEM programs. Okay, so computer science, engineering. Some of them are particularly for STEM programs. So please do listen in to the sessions for liberal arts as well, and those are some really good colleges that students can apply to. They have a lot of funding for international students as well. So certainly when you're making a list of colleges, do diversify your list. We tell students try and have 1 or 2 dream schools on your list. Have 4 or 5 reach schools, 2 or 3 safe schools. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And that kind of goes into the different kinds of schools as well. So do include liberal arts and sciences colleges to your list as well, okay? Now, broadly, the US academic calendar starts in fall. So August or September of any year is when the classes begin for students. There is a spring intake which starts in January, but that's not the regular intake for international students. Most students will start in August or September. The other intake is the rolling admissions. So rolling admissions does not have a particular deadline, okay? So once the school announces that applications are open, you can start applying, and it is on first come, first served basis, okay? Obviously, we tell students don't wait till the last minute to do that, but that's how the rolling admissions work. The other thing to remember about the US is, and this is pretty unique to the US higher education system, it took me also some time to understand ED, EA, hota kya hai, okay? But there's something called early action, and there's something called early decision. And then there's something called regular deadline, okay? So every university has a regular deadline, okay? Just before the regular deadline, you have 2 sets of deadlines called early action or early decision. Now, students who are very strong with their application or who have done all their testing, essays, all of that in time can apply to a school early. That means kya? Ke universities are filling up some seats in the early application cycle. So maybe 30%, 40%, depending on school, gets filled up during early itself. And then kya hota hai ke till the board exams, students already know if they have got an admit or not, and that stress is also kind of taken care of. Some students do apply early because they think ke admissions, the intake is larger, so universities will take us if it's early. they don't take you just because you're early. They take you because your application was a strong one, because these students have started really early on. So with the US higher education system, with the admissions process, the earlier, the better. So if you're in grade 10th, it's not too late to get started. If you're in grade 11, it is time to get started. And if you're in class 12, then it's time to dive right in, you know. There really is no other time to kind of waste. So because you have your deadlines almost 8 to 9 months before you start college. So this year, when our students are going to go to the US for next semester, which is fall 2021, they will apply by November, December maximum for 2021, okay? So it's almost a year prior. So this is why we tell students to start early. Now I just wanted to, with a show of hands, know how many school principals are here today. Anybody? Yes, please raise your hands high. Great, nice to meet you all. How many teachers are here today? Okay, lovely. School counselors, okay? Yes, good to see some school counselors out here. Any school administrators besides the ones that we mentioned? Okay, so I think that kind of covers everybody. Now, how many of you have a school counselor or a counseling service at your school? Could you please raise your hands? Right, just higher guys, that's like a proud thing to do. Okay, all right, lovely. So we realize that school counselors and teachers in particular have a very tough job to do, right? I come from the counseling psychology background myself, and I have tremendous respect for what happens at schools, because you have to be juggling 30 million things at one given time and still manage to help students with applications. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a brief overview. We're going to focus a little bit more on what is the role of the school in the US application. But before that, we'll just dive into the application bit. Okay, now just two concepts we're going to talk about very clearly today here with the US is that the US believes in something called holistic admissions. Okay, and they take that very seriously. Why? So they give an opportunity to the student to not just demonstrate their quantitative strengths or their academic strengths, such as marks, etc., but they also have the opportunity for the student to demonstrate their other qualities. So does a student take initiative? Do they have leadership potential? You know, what are they interested in? What is their academic curiosity like, right? So a student will be submitting marks. Obviously, grades 9 to 12 are going to be very, very important. Okay, you're going to be submitting mark sheets or transcripts. That is going to be a responsibility of the school to provide those documents to the students, right? They also will be asked to sometimes submit standardized tests, okay? And there's another set of tests called the English proficiency test. Now, these constitute the quantitative aspect of your application where you can actually have a number to it, okay? But the other aspect is the qualitative. So what does the child do when they, outside of the classroom, or even at school, but outside the curriculum? How is the child spending their time? What are they passionate about? What impacts them? What are they affected by? So these kind of things, so students might be interested in demonstrating many aspects of their personality, of what they do, and how that is a predictor for what they might be doing on US campuses. Okay? So therefore we tell students that with the US, it's not just the marks. Marks are of course important, but also do focus on your overall development as a person. We'll talk a little bit about what those elements will be. Obviously, I don't want to kind of talk, the cake really is the academics. Everything else is the icing and the cherry and the decoration. So you cannot really kind of compensate one over the other, but they all go hand in hand, okay? So what we do is, I understand that this process gets a little confusing for students. It gets very overwhelming for us advisors also. Just last night, I have had 6 essays come into my inbox, and apparently the deadline is in 2 days. So we have to kind of try and get that done, even though it's the weekend. But sometimes students are like that. They'll wait last minute. So the first one is researching your options, okay? So Jim mentioned that universities are about 4,700 plus, okay, 4,500 plus, which does not make our lives easier, okay? Choice is great, but when you have 4,000 colleges to choose from, I am going to be a stressed out student, parent, teacher, counselor, Education USA advisor. So our job is to help students to understand which universities are a good fit for them. that brings me to my other concept with the US is the best fit concept. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about that when we go into the presentation. But this one is the most important step, step one. And unfortunately, students do not spend enough time on this step. Everybody's in a rush to get to finances or how the application worked and how do I get a visa. But this is a crucial step one, okay? How to shortlist universities. Then how do I find funding? Where is the money? How much is it going to cost me, right? And what does the actual application comprise of? And then, of course, your visa and pre-departure. So we have students with all these steps, okay? Today we're going to talk to you about the first one. So I tell students that the most important factor in shortlisting a university is not the ranking or is not the funding, is not any of that. It really is the student themselves. So when we start sitting down with the student across the table, I always start with what is important to you. Why are you going to the US? What do you get? What are you planning to get out of this education or this 4 years experience? What are your priorities, right? So that's when the conversation really starts happening beyond just ranking. And rankings, everybody knows, are not really official, okay? So rankings, we also see them, we look at them as an indicator, but they are not the only, they should not be the only defining factor, okay? So do encourage your students to explore. So what are the courses on campus? What can I do? I have students who are doing CS, one of them is doing CS, law, and gender studies. So if a student wants to do a major in a particular subject, do they want to explore other courses, right? What's the acceptance rate at the university? That's also another indicator of how selective the college is. Okay, this information is also given very freely to students, okay? Now, if a university is asking you for an SAT or an ACT score, which is one of the standardized tests, it's also helpful for the student to know what is the mean of that test, that is, the mean at this university. So what is the mean SAT score, mean ACT score? Now, why do I say this is because in India, we are very used to the cutoff, right? Kitne marks chahiye, kitna chahiye hoga percentage to apply. There is no real cutoff system in the US. They will give you an indication of how much your GPA should ideally be, but there are students who will apply who do not really necessarily make that cut. And some universities are okay with that because, again, bringing it back to the holistic admissions process. Okay, so do look at these scores. It'll give you at least some indication of how high the marks of most students are at this university in terms of SAT or ACT, okay? We also ask students to look at the size of the college, okay? Are you somebody who will thrive in a classroom of 20 people? Or are you okay with 100 students in a classroom, right? Do you want to be on a college campus which has 4,000 students as opposed to a large public university which has 50,000 students, right? The resources, what kind of facilities do you want on campus? One of my students wanted a college, she was going in for engineering, but she wanted a college which would give her a mountaineering team because she was the youngest Indian to scale the Mount Everest. So she wanted to compete for the university. So her shortlist was also, of course, engineering, but with this factor, right? So you kind of have to sometimes work with students to really look at their lists. So there is no one formula for shortlisting universities. We look at research opportunities if students are interested in that. Do look at location. Location not just because it's hot and cold, but it's also because of the industry, okay? How close, what kind of companies are there, close to campus who come for career fairs, right? Also location in terms of cost of living. If you're going to be living in New York, yes, it's going to be expensive, but maybe you're living in somewhere in the Midwest and that's not as expensive as New York or California. So all of these factors we tell students to look into before they shortlist universities, and you will see on my list there is no mention of rankings, okay? So please do kind of help your students to come to these kind of questions. I have some handouts for you today as well, okay? We also have something called the Define Your Priorities worksheet. It's on our website. You can ask students to start exploring these questions and these answers with that and then help them shortlist as well, okay?
बट अब ट्रेंड्स बदल गए हैं। पहले बोलते थे शादी कर लो घर बस जाएगा, अब कॉन्वर्सेशन एकदम उल्टी है, पहले घर बसाओ शादी कर लेंगे। आपके बच्चे एकदम उल्टा सोच रहे हैं अगेंस्ट आपसे, ठीक है। तो वो सेम दृष्टिकोण से अगर आप गाइड करोगे नहीं चलेगा। आपके बच्चे गारंटी से लिखवा लो, अपने लाइफ स्पैन में कम से कम 5 से 6 करियर्स बदलेंगे, नौकरियां नहीं कह रहा हूँ। जो वो 5 से 6 करियर्स बदलेंगे तो प्लीज ये टेंशन में मत रहना कि बच्चे को ये पढ़ा दिया ये जिंदगी भर उसके साथ रहेगा कि नहीं रहेगा, कोई गारंटी नहीं है। ये अभी दिख रहा है, आप देख नहीं रहे हो शायद, मैं बता रहा हूँ। इंजीनियर्स, मोस्ट इंजीनियर्स कुछ नहीं है सर, बच्चे को बस ये बोल के तैयार करना है कि वो जिंदगी भर पढ़ना है ना। नहीं तो हम वो बेवकूफ बनाने का, एटलीस्ट मेरे टाइम पे तो ये होता था 10वीं कर ले बस हो जाएगा, 12वीं कर ले बस हो जाएगा, अंडरग्रेड कर ले बस हो जाएगा, वो बस नहीं होना, ठीक है। सो दे हैव टू बी ट्रेन्ड फॉर दिस, टोल्ड दिस वेरी क्लियरली, ठीक है। जो अशोका करा रहा है वो ये लिबरल फॉर्म ऑफ एजुकेशन करा रहा है। ये मेरे को गुस्सा आता है बोलते हुए कि हम ये इंडिया में वापस लेकर आए हैं, ये इंडिया की ही पढ़ाई थी। समझाता हूँ, राजा महाराजाओं की कौन सी पढ़ाई होती थी? सोचो आप, राजा महाराजा को शस्त्रों में भी ट्रेन होता था, शास्त्रों में भी ट्रेन होता था, म्यूजिक, थिएटर, आर्ट सब में ट्रेन होता था।
This site has information on how to apply, and this has some useful websites. Also, it has our information at the bottom. Okay, so we are on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. YouTube is our 24/7 education site. Okay, we have sessions on how to get information, how to communicate with professors. Okay, sometimes we don't know that also. Students don't know that, right? So, toll-free line is there Monday to Friday 2 to 5. अगर आपको हमसे बात करनी है, you want to talk to an advisor, I want to apply, how do I get started, I have no idea, just call us and we'll talk to you. Should we take a picture with everybody? Guys, come on. Come. You also come. Is everyone in there? Yeah. have universities from Canada, we have universities from India. Compare things. आपके पास कौन से courses हैं, कौन से scholarships हैं, right? आपको क्या चाहिए students in terms of requirement, deadlines कब हैं, right? So ask them questions. And if you have more questions for me, I'm here. Yeah, you can take this. This is the same one. You can take this one as well. Yes.
Why not? Extra copy for me. Okay.
But can I have a sip of hand? Basically, our services. All
everywhere. You select your sector, I think you know there.
What type of engineering you suggest must valuable?
What type of engineering? I would suggest you to go for, if you have a good maths, right? Then you should select computer engineering or software development. Because through software development you can get into the big data, and big data is the base requirement of today's world.
Will it be adoptable?
Aeronautics, you have to study this things first. मैं बच्चों में जब भी बात करता हूँ मैं सबको ये कहता हूँ कि आप पहले देखो कि आपके पास जॉब ऑप्शंस कहाँ पर क्या मिल रहा है.
They will study first your marketing, finance, everything they will study. So you will study everything and then you will decide कि आपने cyber security का लेना है प्रोग्राम, कि सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपमेंट लाइक कंप्यूटर इंजीनियरिंग में जाना है, कि हार्डवेयर या नेटवर्किंग में जाना है. Next 2 years you specialize in your field. And after doing this, you are straightway adapted by the university. I mean the employees. Yeah. You should go. But I told you will be facing all those challenges. SFU will not, until you score 90% and above. SFU आपको FIC में.
This should be the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Sir, my husband wants.
Yeah.
So, 4 साल के बिजनेस प्रोग्राम में 12 से 16 महीने कैनेडियन एम्प्लॉयर के साथ काम करेंगे एंड अराउंड $40,000 जस्ट बाय बहुत एक्सपोजर मिलेगा इवन बिफोर ही कंप्लीट फैक्टर क्योंकि अपनी एक नेटवर्किंग हो चुकी होगी एम्प्लॉयर्स के साथ एक्सपीरियंस डोंट पैनिक just focus on the same and then decide that you will present all right and then go ahead and look for website and you will decide about
the math and the science, that's a breeze. That's a breeze. You guys know that. But that creative part can at times be challenging. I think academically they are very able.
Indians,
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. When it comes to like the science, math, and animation, they're going to be okay academically. They're going to be able to perform.
Okay.
The biggest issue for them is the transition, as I mentioned, going from the Indian context to the Canadian context.
And what about life skills? Life skills and the community interaction or the society interaction.
Yeah.
Do you think they are more, and here it is less in our school education system? We don't actually stress upon the life skill part or the community interaction. But what we learn, what we see that they do have these programs in their curriculum as well as. We are lacking in this context.
Business projects. Okay. So just keep in mind that since I live on Wichita's campus, I'm very familiar with Wichita, but I don't think that's a good measurement for me to have because they are doing the most when it comes to extracurricular things like connecting with the community.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Have a nice day. Hello. Yes. How can I help you? So you girls are from which school? Angels. You are the principal, counselor. Very nice, ma'am. So what's your name?
Pooja.
Miss Pooja. Perfect. Ma'am, my name is Mahit. I represent an Italian design school that is called Istituto Marmigoni. So, as I said, it's an Italian design school, so we cater to courses like fashion design, fashion business, fashion styling, interiors, graphics, multimedia product. And, so I have about 10 centers across the globe. So 2 are in Milan, 1 is in Paris.
You will connect to our website. You will find all the information on our website, right? So if you want me to requirement,
Yeah, but it's the requirement.
because they have
Right.
saying as scholarship means we need to get the best first or last for this
Right. So scholarships are available, definitely. Yeah, just for and it's just first year scholarships for us at least.
For the 12 plus marks.
Yes,
If they
it's
get,
based on the predicted.
If they will be getting more marks, 9.
Yeah.
Okay, how much marks?
They need to have an 85% or higher.
Passed out. Yes, she just passed out. She's just applied at Marmigoni. She's the one who insisted me to come here and pay the visit. But yeah, so about the school, it's an Italian design school. We are there in the industry for about 85 years now. We started in Milan. I've got a school in Milan, Paris, London, Florence, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Mumbai, and Miami. So in India, I do have a campus in Mumbai as well. As far as since I said it's a design school, so the courses that we cater is more into fashion, creative graphics, multimedia, product. It's an undergraduate program. Let's say you want to opt after 12th grade, then I have an undergraduate program.
Like, we have everyday sports inside the university, which means you can be a part of different sport activities every day. So it's just not a combination of academic attachment, but it's a combination of overall development of the students. It's very helpful for students. When he's coming out of the university, he's just not coming out of one degree. He's coming out of the university and finding one and an overall everything. Apart from that, we have a good amount of scholarship that we offer to our students. So again, when it comes to merit-based scholarship, SAT is not a compulsory requirement for us. But when it comes to scholarship, if the student is looking for a good amount of scholarship, then I will always recommend the student to take up SAT, especially those who are currently in their 10th.
बाकी इसकी प्रेफरेंस क्या है, इसने क्या सब्जेक्ट सकता है,
वो तो है ही
आगे क्या सब
today nowadays studies not in not that lesser amount. They were very, very good.
Yeah, so that's how I have to.
No, this is fine. Yeah.
You can take my
You
card.
are working, like you're working which role in your school?
I'm the coordinator.
So is it okay if we can reach out to you later whenever we
Definitely,
can?
that's fine.
Yeah. Please, you can carry this if you
They own institutions also. That's why I was interested. Students generally require some assistance and guidance. So as many resources I'll be having, as much will be helpful.
Sophia, bring that together.
Yes, postgraduate program.
Yes, I have. It's not a master's program.
what you gonna be.
USA and HCL India for 10 plus years. He currently has 2 patents in food industry, has been doing research in education and working in education management since 2012. Also I invite Ms. Nemi Katyal, Senior Associate, Laksha University, to focus on the present trends in liberal education.
Good morning everyone. It's been a really warm welcome throughout the day, and the kind of energy I can feel here has been really exhilarating. So thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause so that our energies go high before we start? Great. So as you know, myself and Harpreet will be discussing trends in liberal arts education. So just to set up basic norms, we are not here to discuss or give any speech or presentation. And I feel I'm too young to be addressing to a highly qualified crowd here. So we have just kept some norms before we begin. One is that we'd love for you to engage and be open to learning and unlearning. And of course have a lot of fun as we go forward. So, we will begin with asking you one simple question. How do you think an Indian student journey looks like?
So, any thoughts on that? Because I think we're discussing today the challenges of Indian child, but we're really not, spoken about it, right? So, as counselors, teachers, directors, principals, what are your stories from your students, your challenges? Does everybody want to speak about it, right? What are they telling us? Because this session is for you, so I really need to hear from you. Yeah.
10th fellow, life बन जाएगी. 12th fellow, life बन जाएगी. Graduation fellow, life बन जाएगी. Life नहीं बनती है.
हाँ सही. एकदम सही.
Thank you so much.
So, anybody else who wants to add to this? Or everybody is the same page, life बन जाएगी.
See, my son is appearing for 12th board examination. Morning till evening, I'm after him. But your board examination is approaching. On the other hand, I'm browsing on the net, filling up all the forms and the people associated with all the different universities. And ma'am, ye exam karana hai, ye karana hai, ye karana hai. So 90% if he's going and his cracking of the examination methods. So please help me, you have to give me a good option here to work for the board examination or for the exams, which are going to be there for his future studies. Yeah, thank you.
There's someone at the back as well.
Could you pass a mic there, please, if you don't mind? Thank you.
I can say that water everywhere, but there's not a single drop to be. Things has a lot of options, but which is the right path, which is the right path, which is the right direction. That's the main thing. People come to us with a lot of emotions in their minds. Which way to go, which way not to go, which way to follow, which way not to follow. Career चाहिए, job चाहिए, एक lifestyle चाहिए. Our maximum thing, first and foremost thing, quality life चाहिए. We need all the things, but कहाँ से आया? From where to come? So the major question, lot of crossroads are there, lot of paths are there. India में है, बाहर जाना है, क्या करना है? Lot of options are there, but which is the right path, which is the right track to follow? Board exams का pressure एक तरफ और parents का pressure दूसरी तरफ, teachers का डंडा तीसरी तरफ. So lot of डंडा, lot of pressure, but still our students are the best. I must say that. We are there to support them. And I think they would all come out with flying colors in the board examination. Thank you so much.
So I think I'll make some so I hear you guys, right? And I'm cutting it short. I'm sure you have more people who want to answer this. But what I really want to listen, I'm not here. What I really want to listen is the journey of a child. What I'm hearing is challenging from a parent perspective, a counselor perspective. So I'm going to add some context to it. I'm going to share my story. And in that act, I'm hoping you're able to relate to that story from your journey and your kids' journey. Right? And I'm hoping everybody would be able to add to it. Right? So, I was born in Delhi, raised in Pune. So I'm not exactly a Delhi Sardar, I'm a Marathi Sardar. Right? So I speak Marathi more fluently than Punjabi. But when I got raised, I had challenges. Challenges from perspective because my parents used to ask me stupid questions. Stupid questions, why? Because it doesn't make sense for them asking a child who is this young to bade hoke kya karega. And why do I call it stupid? Stupid for a reason, because at that point in time, if I ask my parents, आप अगले 5 साल में क्या करोगे? उनके पास उसका जवाब नहीं है. But somehow we expect a child to answer that at an early age. कि बड़े होके क्या करेगा? और कहीं ना कहीं मेरे को एक फ्लॉ लगता है. The flaw is somehow we are not interested in what he wants to do. Somehow we are interested in knowing कि मैं क्या करूँ जो तू बोले उसके लिए. And in that journey, what has happened is I'll share. When I was a small kid, I used to play with a train toy. When I used to play with a train toy, if anybody asked me at that point, what will you do when you grow up? I'll say I'll be a train driver. Right? Based on whatever I experienced, I used to respond accordingly. That was me as a child. And you would have observed the same with your kids. Right? What happens? You keep on asking, the answers keep on changing. और मेरे को लगता नहीं बीमारी पुरानी है, मेरे माँ बाप की होगी. नहीं, मेरा बड़ा भाई 3 साल पहले उसने मेरे नेफ्यू को पूछा बड़ों के क्या बनेगा? He said भिखारी. मेरा बड़ा भाई डर गया है. He was scared. He said भिखारी. Why did you say a beggar? The kid in 3rd class responded, Papa, have you seen that person who is in the Vodafone ad, who has a lot of musical instruments on top of it? He plays them and earns money out of it. I said, yes, Papa, if I could earn money while making people happy, then why not? 3rd class kid responded. Indian parents being Indian parents, आंखों में तो आंसू, सर में हाथ, हाथ में लाल दिखाई बनी. And that's how things are. But what happens? Stay with me. What happens? From that time, things keep altering, changing. Right? So I saw people in the uniform. When I saw people in the uniform, I was very clear in my thoughts. I'll join the army. Does it look like I'm from the army? Probably Punjab police, that's the best correlation you bring, right? But that's how kids answer. I went to an army school, that was my aspiration. I changed my school, my aspiration changed from an army school, went to an Air Force school. So I was Sukhoi Su-27 at that time. 2-seater plane, bigger than a thing. आगे वाला चलेगा, पीछे वाला बम गिराएगा. If anybody asks me what you do, ना बम गिराएगा. Sadly, we ask these questions to our kids, but we don't let them decide. At my time, the conversations were that. 80 above, do sciences. 60 above, do commerce. Whatever left, do whatever. At that time, that whatever was known as arts, today is known as humanities. Times are changing. Kids above 9 are also choosing humanities now. Right? But as a kid, I was confused, I was scared. So what do you do as a kid? You go back to your parents because you assume they have all the wisdom on earth. So I did class 11 and 12 sciences, non-medical as you might want to call it. Went to class 12, asked father, what should I do? Father said, do something in telecom. I said, telecom? Father said, I work for BSNL, Videsh Sanchar Limited. You work for telecommunications, I'll ensure you will job somewhere. Father sounded like those colleges which you have billboards for which says 100% placement guarantee. I took that bit, did telecommunications. In that path of whatever I chose, I ended up loving my telecommunications. So I'll share this, I'll ask you questions on our audience. Guys, do you know why do we hire girls as receptionists? Glamour. I heard it. Good, great. What else? Scream loud, just answer. Don't need a mic for this. Why do we hire girls for this as a receptionist? Where's the voice? Softness. Patience, pleasing. Politeness. Communication skills. Beautiful man. देखो audience में देखो it's see this thing. If a girl is answering it, it's a woman empowerment speech. That we have so skills, and thus we want to be whatever. If a boy answers, at that time I was in college, answers are such you can't say publicly. Right? I learned in telecommunications that the medium of communication between two cables, a copper wire is used. A copper wire transmits data in frequencies. Frequency in which a girl speaks compared to a guy, the girl carries more frequency, data, than a guy, thus more clearer. Thus, by default, Google, Siri, all voice-activated systems are a girl's voice. I was excited about the education which I got, but then came internship. Internship is a phase that ideally I step into a world, experience it, see if I like it, don't like it, step back. That was the intent of the internship. I killed the internship model, I made it, convinced the company that they'll hire me. Isn't that what you have heard now? Internships. We were speaking of co-ops today in the morning, right? Convince the company that they'll hire you intent. That's the intent. The intent is not really to do that. The intent is really to get exposed. I did an internship. I realized whatever was happening in that industry did not exist in my land. What fascinated me in telecommunications was designing and development. What was there in India in telecommunications was deployment and sales. And sadly, nobody in India speaks of it. समझ रहे हो? हम telecommunications में technology import करते हैं, कोई design and development नहीं होती है. But जो telecommunications में सिखाते हैं, that is designing and development. That's the journey of a child, trying to bridge all this. I did my undergrad, quit telecommunications, did robotics, artificial intelligence, quit robotics, did 2 papers in the food industry, quit that, started research in education, working in education management since 2012, now working professionally. That's my journey. I want you to relate to this journey because somewhere your answers are here and I'm here to help that transition. That's my intent of this brief session. Is that what you thought? We started on the right page? Right?
Thank you so much, Harpreet, for sharing that wonderful story. Just to give a quick background about my journey as a student, and I wasn't planning to share this, but I think this will help a lot of us, the education is sitting here right now. I chose science just in standard 6. A lot of the times when I'm speaking to the students today, I was asking them when they are in 8th, 9th, which subject are you going to take in your 11th and 12th? And they mentioned, we don't know, we are still exploring, etc., etc. But in standard 6, I selected that I'm going to take science. Why was that? I come from a tier 2 city, Agra, and I saw a lot of my cousins not going out to study just because they were taking commerce and there were opportunities back then. There was nothing, no college there that had science in it, and I wanted to move out and explore my education outside of my city. That's why my mind trained itself saying that, okay, science it is, that's all. Right? In 11th when I came in, all I knew I wanted to take science, without even understanding that that was my interest. I took up BSc in Statistics Honours from Delhi University College. Just because my relatives and everybody around me told me there was huge scope. I didn't love any of those educational years. I was a brilliant student, but still I never enjoyed it. So then the correlation in my mind happened later that even if you're good at it doesn't mean that you enjoy that very subject. Post my undergraduation, I wanted to do something that I could see getting impacted in any field. I chose to go to Teach for India, which is, just to give a context, Teach for India is a system wherein you are assigned a classroom for 2 years in a government school. So you are responsible as a teacher, as an educationist for their 2 years for their academic as well as personal growth. So I worked in a government school for 2 years with 70 girls from 6th and 7th graders. And then I moved to Ashoka University to do Young India Fellowship Program, which is a master's level program. So I have seen education system in different parameters, a government school education and a government college education and also a private university education system. And what changed me completely was that 1 year. If I have to owe one academic year, it was my time at Ashoka that completely changed how I see everything. The approach was very interdisciplinary. We were just not studying one subject, we were studying interdisciplinary courses that talked about history, with maths, with physics, with sciences, social sciences, everything. You had the choice to sit in different classrooms, right? Without being restricted, which otherwise we are restricted in all the colleges, most of the colleges we go to. That gave me the courage to then step onto the higher education side of it and build a university, and that's how my journey to Plaksha began, of building another institution where I could contribute and be on the other end, of not just receiving but also now working towards it. So, now these are the next questions. What careers existed when you were in 12th? So go back when you were completing your 12th.
What was happening that time? What were the conversations then? आपके माँ बाप क्या कह रहे थे?
Doctors and engineers.
कुछ career क्या
Doctors and engineers, yes.
Doctors, engineers, CA, right? Were these the conversations?
Teachers.
Right?
Teachers, yes.
Teachers नहीं थे. आज के डेट में भी नहीं बोलते बच्चे. I get it. But good.
Second question, what careers exist today?
Is there a change? Do you really?
Yes.
In time, from that time to today, has there been a shift? Are you able to sense that as educators, at least you get that sense? That there has been a shift from your time to today, at least we acknowledge this? Great, good.
And can someone answer what are the shifts looking like? What are the trends one can see very, very evidently?
Parents' perspective towards humanity is great. I think design is really coming up, a lot of options in design is really coming up. Startups, entrepreneurship, I want to be an entrepreneur. I think liberal art is still unknown. Digital marketing, right? What else? Many things in hotel management. We very good. We have to make with that, right? But great, thank you.
Okay, so this is a very dictionary-oriented definition. I'm not going to read it out loud. You can swiftly read it through, and then we deep dive.
But just in case not everybody is agreeing, it says willing to respect or accept behavior or opinion differences from one's own open and new idea. Because liberal, there are a lot of myths. So we want to clear that myth with the definition first. What does liberal mean? Liberal means khula dimaag, open-mindedness. Right? That's what liberal word means. That's what the dictionary word is mentioned. Right? Yeah.
Now we have a quick activity. You all have your notebooks with you. Just mention what is liberal art and what it's not. And we take quick answers in another 3 minutes.
By show of hands, how many of you have heard of the term liberal education?
Yes.
We have heard of this earlier. Great. A few of you have heard of this liberal education concept earlier. How many of you have not heard? Raise hands. Okay. And how many of you have not raised hands in respect to whatever? Guys are watching, okay? Don't do this. Right? So the ones who have not heard of it, what do you think it is? Or whatever you have heard, if anybody has heard, what do you think it is? You just, pin it down. You want to say something?
Your time starts now.
Yeah, cool. Tick, tick 1. Tick, tick 2. Tick, tick 3. How many seconds are you giving? Tick, tick 4. Just on a piece of paper. What do you think liberal is? Liberal education. ये बलम है.
But please, is a tough teacher. He might just give you the mic. Just say.
Some desks are not even, they don't even have a pen, either they're asking for it. I have a pen. I need help. Pen? No. I think that is.
Let's take some answers.
Cool. So who wants to say? जिसने कभी नहीं सुना था वो liberal के बारे में क्या बोलना चाहता है? Definition तो सुन ली है. You have heard the definition of liberal. What do you want to say? Anybody wants to say about liberal education? Cool.
I would say when the educator is appreciating opinions which is maybe not his or hers.
Okay, somebody appreciating in terms of whatever we're thinking. That could be liberal. Okay, great. Thanks. Anybody wants to add? Want to add?
Maybe it's a choice of whatever you want to study, irrespective of what you have been told earlier by your parents or by your peers.
The choice of what you want to study, irrespective of the background, right? Okay, great. I see one hand raised here.
It is a blend of all subjects as per the choice of the child. The child can make a combination of any stream wherever he or she best suits. That's called as liberal education.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You addressed everybody. That was like a highlight of we are having an engaging session.
Right. Cool. Anybody else?
Yeah.
I'm giving opportunities for people to not.
It is like a shift to other subject if someone is not comfortable with the choose one.
Super. There was someone here as well. Yes.
So I think, like as per what we were told earlier, that if we want to choose medical, we can just study biology, chemistry, physics, only those subjects. So here with liberal arts, I think we get the choice of studying biology and side by side studying maybe economics or maybe psychology. So I think that's liberal arts according to me.
Interesting. So you have the choice to choose different
subjects that I think none already addressed.
We'll take 3-4 answers for what it's not.
For what it is not. ये पता है did anybody have a thought of it? What it is not?
Structured education system. Structured education
Conventional
system.
education system.
Okay, the conventional system it is not.
Okay, convention.
Okay. Like the way we have like humanities, commerce, it's not that, it's beyond that. So no boundaries here, I must say that. Then we have no boundaries anywhere in this world. We have created boundaries. Same with the education, we have no boundaries. The liberal education also have no boundaries. Sky is the limit.
Thank you.
I think
Yeah. My favorite answer is beta ye side pe kar lena, kuch degree le aao.
Liberal arts is a hobby. This is music. This is humanities. This is something which you do otherwise. And question people also ask: if you do liberal arts, would you really get a job? A lot of people have also started saying this, right? So we're going to address a few things. So in terms of what it is.
Go ahead, read it.
So what it is all about open choices first. The first thing which liberal arts is clearly about is it doesn't care if you're sciences, commerce, humanities, medical, non-medical. It doesn't matter. So a student of humanities can do biology. That's the first thing. And why even stick to that? Why just biology? I could add biology with psychology in spite of me being from any stream. I could create combinations. Think about it. We don't have this program, but think about it. You being a lawyer and you doing ethics, philosophy along with psychology. Right? Imagine a program like this. But is it all about just doing multiple subjects together? It's not about doing multiple subjects together. So for instance, if you observe till class 10, we are multidisciplinary. If you see we're doing multiple subjects together, that does not make it liberal. So till class 10, we're doing maths, English, so on, right? What makes it liberal is when multiple subjects talk to each other. I'll give you an example. Guys, what is inside this? Water? What is water a study of? What is water a study of? Chemistry, great. Is it only chemistry? What else? Geography, history, biology, psychology, philosophy. It's a study of everything.
So if you really want to understand water and you just catch hold of H2O, have you understood water? No. So if you have to understand water, you have to see it from multiple dimensions, but not in isolation. So how do I convert an existing system into liberal? I'll give an example. When an English teacher comes to class and says, this book is written by an author XYZ, historically this is the significance of this book, psychologically this is what the author was thinking while writing the book. Then it becomes an interdisciplinary approach, not multidisciplinary. I hope you get it, right? So liberal education is yes, open to choices. Why? Because interdisciplinary is important. You have to go beyond your scope, add multiple dimensions. Second, freedom to think critically and independently. Not be knowledge absorbers, but knowledge creators. So today, most of you didn't know about Ashoka. But imagine if you had heard about Ashoka and come prepared in this. Now, whatever jnana I'll give you, question it. Right now, whatever I'm saying, you're absorbing it. But if you were prepared with Ashoka, you could say, Harpreet, whatever you're saying right now is correct, whatever you're saying right now is incorrect. You'll have an opinion about it, you'll challenge me. Right? You critically think it through. It's not a download. I hope you're getting what I'm trying to say, right? So it adds critical thinking, independent thought process. It goes beyond arts, sciences, commerce. It's not humanities. It's not just sciences also. So many people say, I did a liberal education from DU. Excuse me, DU did not have liberal education. So you're doing a program in English honors or humanities is not liberal education. It's linear. Right? Yeah. It's an interdisciplinary approach. I think we will explain this. It allows breadth and depth. It's not just depth. Sadly, Indian education system has only been depth. It does not allow that width which is needed. Right? So I think I've cleared that distinction. Is that clear? Isko chhodkar kuch bhi is not liberal. Why I'm saying this is because liberal has become the catching word now. Every university has started using it. Like international school. An international school is an international school. But a school automatically changes its name to an international school. Does it become an international school? I hope you get it. Right? So please understand this. We're making this consciously very clear. Liberal arts and sciences, these things, the rest everything is not liberal. Right? Next.
Also, and a very important point that we should emphasize is the fact that while there are choices to choose, there is also a choice to be unsure about. So even if you are taking a course, let's say in your first year and you're not sure if you wanted to do this, you can easily change it back in your second year. So giving that liberty of dropping off and being okay about it is completely fine. Because a lot of pressure comes, oh my god, I'm not sure about it.
Being confident with confusion. That's what parents and their children do. Very good. Right? Encourage confusion. Right? Question. Great. Next.
Please go ahead.
But why did this need come of liberal in India today? Did it exist in India earlier? I feel saddened when we say we're introducing this to India. It was an Indian thing. I'll explain this. Have you ever imagined what the kings were trained? Kings of India. What education they had? Parents. What kind of education?
Liberal education.
What do you mean by that? They were trained in Shastra, music, theatre, psychology. Isn't that right? There are multiple disciplines. Right? Correct? Did India have a true education system at that time? We did in a few places. But technically it was not that structured. The Indian education system was its caste system. We used to train one generation to the next in a certain skill set. Are you able to relate to what I'm saying? Correct? Now when kings were trained, they were given liberal education. When other people were trained, they were trained in a caste system from one generation to the other generation. Knowledge was transferred. When Britishers came to India, we got rid of the caste system. We got rid of that liberal education. We got the British education model. But sadly, they did not apply the same education model they have in their own land. They applied something else completely. That was the need of the hour at that time. So if you go back in history, there have been 4 industrial revolutions. Steam, which happened in the 18th century, electricity, which happened in the 19th, information technology happened in the 20th century, and artificial intelligence in the 21st century. Please pardon a slide, they're kind of, link those 2 centuries together.
But the first industrial revolution had a requirement for you to be specific, work on a certain path, operate in that domain only. And the Indian education system which we are referring to right now works perfectly over there. You're aligned with a certain thought, stick to that thought, and that is the end of it. Sadly, our Indian education system is stuck in the first two revolutions. We did not even migrate to the third revolution, which is information technology, because we consciously restrict kids to a certain course curriculum. And we say, don't go beyond this. Don't access the internet. Don't get the information from the internet. So information technology really created that collaboration of people from across the world. That resulted in the fourth revolution happening quicker, which is the artificial intelligence. What has happened because of this? The industry has shifted from a physical state to a cognitive state, where there is no definition of an industry physically anymore. I'll give you actual industry examples, right? For instance, have you heard the company Facebook? Yes, no, maybe? Guys, respond, please. Yeah. Good. Facebook is an IT company. If somebody had to create Facebook a few years back, he'll do a BTech Computer Sciences or a BSc Computer Sciences. Right? But you know, the owner of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, he was called for a courthouse hearing a few months back. Do you know what that courthouse hearing was? He was questioned on data being leaked by Facebook and given to a third party for some data analysis in some form or the other. He was questioned on something which is ethics. Ethics is not a padhai of computer sciences. It's not a padhai of law. It's a padhai of philosophy. I just linked computer sciences with philosophy. Linear thought. Physical domain sex. There is no physical domain anymore like that. It's gone beyond boundaries. The biggest car selling today, MG Hector, it does not talk about the car at all in the ad. It only talks about the human connection. Right? Technology company, not talking about technology, talking about human psychology. Are you able to get that sense? Please? Thank you. Thanks. Thus, because of this, the job environment has changed. So earlier, my father had this thing, join one company, retire from it. And then it kind of evolved to, okay, one job, multiple skills. So same people with whatever education, they kind of sustained with experience. They gained that skill set in time. Today's world, it is altered completely. It is multiple jobs, multiple careers. So in my story, I was an exception in my time. I changed multiple careers. But that's a trend with almost all your kids today. So one learning if you really have to take, because I got a lot of parents asking me today, what should my child do? And the answer is no matter what they do, they'll have to relearn everything all over again. So don't worry too much about it. Right? Most engineers as it is in India are not doing engineering. So if you're not able to realize that fact, what are we talking about? Right? Just be present with this. Thank you. Thanks. Okay.
So, whatever, just building on what Harpreet mentioned, the fact that the need of the hour is that we need a holistic, a student who's holistic in nature. A lot of our students came in asking, this is my interest, it's medical or non-medical. These are the two dominant words they were using. But as an engineer, if you see, there's a huge gap right now. One is they select a stream based on the availability of the seats there. There's a huge competition first to get in. Then they select a stream that says civil, mechanical, electrical, computer science, depending again on the seat. And then finally they start looking out for jobs. Then a lot of the engineers completely shift away from engineering industry. At Teach for India, we saw that more than 50% of the people who joined Teach for India wanted to do something impactful, but the technical skills weren't coming in handy. Right? And also, with the interdisciplinary approach coming in, a student who's doing his or her engineering, just cannot do a certain discipline. It has to come together, interwoven together, into such a manner that he or she can do robotics, AI, machine learning, data sciences. All of these are amalgamation of different disciplines coming together. So that is what makes, let's say, technology interdisciplinary nature. Second is, of course, the interwovenness of liberal arts education. So if an engineer is pursuing engineering, has to solve a real world problem, they need to understand the context of the problem. And of course, the pedagogy and the curriculum should be very, very hands-on. so that they can apply it in the real world. And then of course self-development. Once you make that solution, how are you going to make sure that it's reaching out to the world? So while Harpreet has mentioned a lot on the liberal arts education, I'm just emphasizing it and adding a technology angle to it. That's what exactly we are trying to do at Partap.
And again, you know, if you go back, it's not something new. And I think, you know, universities started bragging about that we go for self-development and a lot of things. But how
in the room time, what we are trying to do is the first row will have science as the subject, second row will have maths as the subject.
So when I'm saying second row, this row and this row combined together, is that okay?
Well, let's do.
Okay, that way?
Yeah, that
cool.
we call it.
Okay, so this row completely we're giving sciences.
First.
This row in the middle.
This second row can do math, third row can do social science, and the fourth will do English or Hindi, one language. Right? What you have to do is you have to explain sun by looking through the lens of sun. You have to explain sun by looking through the lens of different disciplines, which you must be teaching back in your school.
So, okay, so help explain better. If sciences is here and I'm looking at sun. So I would want to believe every table has that one person which will ensure everybody in the table is participating. It's a different task.
Distance from us and time.
The volunteers from Partap World School are not participating. I could have some fun.
You have to discuss it with your group just in case we weren't clear. Sorry about that.
So whoever is
tables and ask for answers.
Life it is a source of possibility. Interesting. Thank you so much.
Shape round.
Right.
And circles, sorry. And there are a little bit of triangles, a lot of triangles. And we can talk about distance from Earth.
And time as well.
And time as well.
Diameter and
Diameter. Yes, ma'am. You please can.
The speed and distance when rays fall on the earth, and there is angles also. When the rays fall each angle, the shadow makes the angles also.
That's very interesting.
Right? And on the pole it makes the angles, and trigonometry is also there. Pythagoras theorem is also there with this. Right? So distance times weight and comparison also, circle also, shape also. And we can get the radius and diameter also from the concepts of circle. Right?
Thank you so much.
Harming our environment. White is what? The seasonal impact on different parts of the globe. They are all from geography, a part of history, because I am talking of the timeline. So it's all how I can relate sun with this topic of history and geography. And the whole of geography is based on sun only.
Yeah, I'm with the history group, with those pundits in the group. So we know that the Varanasi routine, so the change of every month means that
if we talk about eclipses, all across to sun, and if we talk about history, if you all heard about Konark temple, yes, it belongs to sun only. And if I talk about Mahabharata, mythology, history, Suryaputra Karan, if somebody knows about that. So I think these things should also be there, and we all, okay, and global warming, ozone layer, so many things are there.
I think last week Hindi, I think I'll add this thing.
धीरे-धीरे ढलता है, ढल जाएगा. So, like this literature can be covered and more over lot many things. हमारी जो सुबह शुरू होती है वो शायद सूर्य नमस्कार से ही शुरू होती है. सबसे बड़ी बात संस्कार और rest, English also, literature can be covered, prose, poetry, both the things. And to junior kids, we can introduce the color, the shape. One more poem is rhyme is also there for junior kids. Maybe goal, to be goal. Suraj is also goal. So sari duniya goal motor matter like that. Thank you, sir.
We all IC3 members sitting here. Big round of applause to everyone.
Great. I think now if we talk about, when all these dimensions are talking about a certain topic with different background kids, they're able to approach it from a very different aspect altogether. Sense of what happens in the liberal class. It's a small glimpse. It's not the way really we do a class, but yeah, it's a small glimpse of how it works. I think, yeah.
And of course, collaborating with different
kids to know everything. Right? Let them be confused. Confusion is okay. Let's not consciously try and get rid of confusion by telling them to choose what to do now. It's okay for them to change. The point is, change what support functions we have to do that. Right? I think that should be the conversation. Are we equipped enough to do so? Right? What assistance do we offer them to be able to do that? I think that's the question we should be really asking and not be scared about it. Right? I think that's one thing which, as a take home, if you're reading. And a lot of kids ask me, how do I identify what to do? So in the morning, one of the aspects I saw internship written. I think internship is not used at all, at least in school level. I've really missed this opportunity being used in school level. Right? I think Jeff was morning, I think one of the presentations is shared internship. Internship is an act for me to step into a zone, experience it if I like it or not. And if I like it, great, continue that journey. If I don't like it, step back, choose another dimension, step in that direction, see if you like it, don't like it. Give an example. If you want to be a chef, what could be an internship for a chef? In India, if I talk this, people say, join a restaurant or join a hotel or do. No, it could be simpler than that. Stand with the mom education for a day, you'll come to know you like that environment of being a chef or not. You want to be a lawyer? How do you know if you want to be a lawyer or not? Bina gunah ki kacheri jaake khade ho jao. You have to many times just get exposed to that environment and see if you'll be comfortable in that environment or not. Kids saying I want to be a mechanical engineer. If you can't stand in front of a hot heated engine, how could you be a mechanical engineer? You want to be a civil engineer, you can't do site visits. Stand in the sun in India. You want to be a civil engineer. Right? So these are the internships. They are supposed to be exposed to that environment. That environment need not be a paid internship. It's my exposure in that land. So the best way is uncle auntie की list बनाओ. स्कूल में इतने माँ बाप हैं, सब कोई ना कोई इंडस्ट्री में काम करते हैं. सबकी लिस्ट बनाओ. किसको किस चीज की इंटर्नशिप चाहिए? अंकल आंटी के साथ एक दिन भेज दो ऑफिस. That's it. That's all you need. Your internships are done. Right? School units, networks are so strong. If you don't have them, catch hold of your principals, directors. Apparently they have been pulling their socks. I haven't seen them. Really push themselves. I honestly have not seen any IC3 conference, local conference, the owners really taking that effort. The organizers are taking that effort. नहीं समझ आ रहा पहुंच दो उनके पास. सब नहीं समझ आ रहा मदद चाहिए. Right? Do that. I'll share my number if you want. Call me. I'll be more than happy to answer. I'm not trying to sell Ashoka at all. My conversations have only been about liberal education. Right? Ashoka is just one thing in that entire thing. Right? Being inclusive is the word. Being liberal is the word. I guess that's all I can say. Any questions? I'll be more than happy to answer.
So we just have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions? Any questions?
Whether it's the IC board, whether it is
CBSE, whatever, yeah.
So majority of the schools are following this pattern.
Correct.
So my question to you is that at this stage, when my students who are already being taught and brought up in such a conventional environment, how I can be able to convince them to go for something out of the range, out of the box, or a liberal education.
Beautiful.
That's my point. Because till now class 11 or class 12, I'm telling them, I'm teaching them commerce, humanities. Although my students are going for liberal education, a lot of them. You already know that. So my question is that some of them come to me and say, ask one of my very good students, elder student, why should I go for this? Give me one good reason. So my only point is how we can at the stage of class 11, 12 incorporate these things. Thank you.
So I'll divide it into parts. And that's a challenge with the morning, I think, the candidate representation. I think that question got asked, how the kids do that transition. See, for a school outside India, they're already in that critical thinking game. So when they go from a K-12 to an undergrad, they kind of competent. But consciously knowing this, Ashoka has I'm sorry, I'm speaking of Ashoka right now. But I think that is required for me to answer this. Ashoka has a foundation program to cater to this transition from going from a root learning to critical thinking. Right? So when that happens, because critical thinking does not happen naturally to an Indian student inside. Because we really ask them to absorb knowledge, not to create knowledge. For them to be okay with it, there has to be a foundation program which Ashoka has consciously worked at. And that's a challenge kids have when they go outside India directly without that foundation, that bridging program to convert them. Right? So that's one way of looking at it. And the question which you're asking, I've already trained them on sciences, commerce, humanities, how do they? So for a liberal institute, it does not matter if they're from sciences, commerce, humanities. Right. I get it. So the question is, how do we connect people? Right? Elon Musk, Amazon owner, whoever is. Okay? If you see their backgrounds, they're all liberal education background. People who are in these top jobs, who are creating, who are changing the world in that sense of it, they're all liberal education. First. So you have to give them examples, live examples of people who are doing that change. First.
Such like should be there, or should at least some education related to that should be there. So that the students are already in that form.
I hear. So the question is, can we incorporate this?
Another hour, and we are happy to.
Could we clap for all of you?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry guys, if it took longer.
IC3 exam. Prior to joining college board, he worked as a founding admissions and outreach team member at Ashoka University. He started his career at Ernst and Young in brand and marketing. Mr. Sandeep has worked with schools and students across India, helping students navigate through college and career choices. He holds an MBA in marketing, finance, sustainable development from Delhi University, Delhi. Both of them will emphasize on skills for the future of work.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. I'm Sandeep. I represent this organization called College Board. It's a New York-based organization which owns and conducts the SAT exam. And fairly recently, they started their office in India, and I'm part of that office. And what I'm going to speak to you about is skills for future of work. And I know Harpreet is a tough act to follow, so I'm going to keep this short, and I'll show you some videos, try to make it more interactive. And I have Mr. Vinay with me. He's the counselor at the school. So my idea really was, and it's also sort of a preface to liberal arts session, where I want to introduce you to what's happening around the world in terms of jobs. We all hear about what's happening in technology, the artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain technology, how fast things are changing. So this will just be a glimpse of what's really happening. What kind of job opportunities are coming up, what kind of skills are needed, on those lines, right? So part of my job always has been interacting with students. Before this, I worked for a university called as Ashoka, which you guys heard about briefly, which is based on liberal arts. And whenever I have traveled to schools, universities across the country or outside India, I see that students are really, really excited about the future, right? As parents, as educators, it sounds harsh. We may not sound as that excited, because I can tell you from my experience, and I'm very happy I'm here at Pathankot, because I did part of my schooling from a place which is very close from here in Dalhousie. I was a student of DPS Dalhousie. I'm not sure if anyone's here. Anyone here from DPS Dalhousie? Oh, okay, I'll talk to you all. session gets over. So I was in a boarding school for a couple of years, so it's glad to be here. And in my interactions with students across the country, now students have really started to not, I mean, they ask you these questions, what should they do? But they're also very open to, listening to you with the kind of upcoming fields that are there. So they want to break that notion of either being an engineer or a doctor or say a chartered accountant, that the kind of notions that their parents had, right? So let's look at what's happening now, how the world is changing. I'm going to play a small video for you. Industrial Revolution 4.0, just to give you a... Can you switch to the video? So this is the kind of world that we are living in now. It's being termed as VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain world, and which is complex and ambiguous at the same time. And that's the reality that we are living in today, right? And this is the kind of reality that our students will have to deal with when they step out there to go to college or to go into workplaces. So earlier there was a generation, first generation of industrial revolution where we saw steam engines, right? Then there were production lines that were created, then there was internet age, and now which is the fourth generation, the world is more connected, the cyber physical systems are more connected, we are using technology like Alexa where you can, probably control everything that you can think of in your household or otherwise just by using your voice commands, right? That's one small example. Now jobs are also being replaced by the same technology. I met somebody who works in one of the technology companies in India, and they've already started replacing their customer care executives by teaching these bots how to answer most of these questions that people typically have. You would have also noticed in banking system, companies have started inserting these bots, really, So how fast technology is changing, it's really becoming very difficult to predict the kind of jobs our students will be looking at. But what we can really predict based on our knowledge today is certain set of skills and some of these job roles which might come up, right? So anyone who might tell you with full certainty that these are the job roles which will be there in say 2030, they might fool you because nobody they can predict. Like, 5 years back nobody was talking about big data analytics, nobody was talking about things like social media marketing, right? And these have become some of the biggest jobs today, right? All the millennials, some of the biggest companies they are doing and their research on how do millennials behave, because they're buying patterns are entirely different from how you or me, how we used to consume products. So if you look at all the big companies, they are really investing in research just to understand how these younger generations, how they think, what kind of aspirations they have, how they would like to consume products, what kind of products they would like to use in the future, right? So the times entirely changed from what we were aware of, and it's happening at a very fast pace, right? Some of the things we predicted, like flying cars or colonizing Mars, did not happen, and we are happy it did not, because we've already ruined one planet. So thankfully, I hope we don't ruin another, and it doesn't happen very soon. But apart from that, the kind of technological innovations how they're happening in fourth industrial revolution, how connected systems are, and it also again relates a lot to all the disciplines playing together at this junction, right? So you have technologies like driverless cars or driverless trucks, which have already started to become reality. You have Amazon, who started to deliver products to drones. So how things are moving, it's crazy. What that has led to essentially is this shift in career choices. So earlier, what we knew of that career used to happen by chance, right? But now students have so many choices that the careers are not just limited to what we knew of earlier as you could become a CA, you could become a doctor, you could become an engineer. There are really career portfolios today that a student can pursue, right? So students don't need to have a very unidirectional approach, essentially, right? So interdisciplinary curriculum is really becoming the norm. Earlier, the problem was, I can tell you from my experience as well, I was a science student who studied PC and B because my parents thought if not an engineer, I could become a doctor, and both of them didn't happen. I ended up studying chemistry because I love science, and because I could not really develop my interest in research, I had to drop that idea and switch to something else entirely. And then I went on to study sustainable development and economics and finance later. But I wish there was this option, where I could have got some exposure to all of these disciplines before I took this choice of spending my 3 years, putting it into a college and then realizing I don't like that at all, right? So that time has also sort of changed. Now students have this option that they really don't need to even pre-decide all of this, because I think even as adults we do feel like the choices that we are making, the choices that we have made, they were really influenced, and somebody told us to do this, our best friend was doing this, that seemed glorious at some point of time, but we cannot really claim that all of those choices really make us happy at this point. But that scenario, because there is so much happening around, that has essentially shifted and changed now. So a student could be an engineer and could also become a photographer along with that. I know a lot of people who made their career who studied management, but then went on to become bloggers, like travel bloggers, food bloggers. There are so many careers, they've become writers, even if they did not have a writing background. So it's really about, it's not about having one certain set of fixed idea about a career, but students can actually explore multiple careers together and really have a portfolio of careers, right? You could be a doctor today, and you could also pursue music along with that. So the point that I'm really trying to make is that earlier it was needed that students had to make these choices very early on in life and stick to that, but that time has changed. The kind of opportunities that are out there, if a student is doing well in a field, they could really excel, they could do multiple things. So earlier, if you really needed technical knowledge and know-how to really excel in a career, and that has now shifted to skills because we are living in the age of Google, so knowledge is really not a distinguishing factor anymore, right? Like what you know, I could Google in next 2 minutes and find out, or what I know, you can Google and find out next 2 minutes. So that's really not, a distinguishing factor anymore, right? So it's really the skills I'm going to talk about, some of these skills. So from qualification, now it's really the skills that matter, of course, along with the technical know-how. The good part here is what I feel is because of this shift that has happened because of these technological advancement of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain technology, all of these technologies have really created opportunities to solve some of the biggest problems in the world, right? We know 90% of the population by 2050 they are going to move into cities, right? The rate at which urbanization is happening, it's predicted by 2050 there will be 90% of population will live in the cities. You already know if somebody is from Delhi, it's literally a gas chamber. Now we feel very good coming to this part of the country because the air quality is much better. So the world is facing so many problems of urbanization, the resource scarcity. But the good part here is all these technological innovations have created this opportunity for these future generations to really work and solve some of these problems, right? And that's where I see a lot of job opportunities also that are going to come out from. If you take an example of something like Uber or a Ola, it's a perfect example of technological innovation which has solved a problem of urban mobility. We still face the problem of finding parking spaces. But if you look at Uber, it has solved a big problem of mobility for a lot of people. Now people have started thinking and calculating, okay, we should not own cars. You started calculating this cost of owning cars versus taking Uber every day to your office, because it's a huge cost. If you own a car, you have to maintain it. There are so many other costs involved. People have also become very conscious now. I've started using this application called as Quick Rides, which is a carpool application. If I own a car and if I'm going to my office every day, I can offer. They've started piloted this app in Delhi, and I can offer rides to people who are going in that same direction, right? So these kind of and it has only happened in last 4 or 5 years with how rapid technology has developed that we are able to create all of these solutions. Even food delivery apps for some extent, although I see another problem that they created that people that stop cooking at their homes, and especially parents are complaining that kids all the time want to order food from these apps. But essentially, that's also a solution which has come out of some of this need. And these are some of the companies that you would realize are some of the biggest job creators, right? So it's sort of important to note for you also that a lot of your students also have this opportunity. I see a lot of newer generation students, they really want to become entrepreneurs, right? More than ever, like at least I can tell from my generation, people
create jobs, and some countries may actually need it because many populations are aging. By 2030, there will be at least 300 million more people aged 65 and older than there were in 2014. And it's in those countries with aging populations that automation is growing fastest.
All right. So I don't know if all of you can read it, but this is a list of some of the new roles which are coming up and some roles which are becoming redundant. So I can probably read out a few of them for you. So some stable roles would be like, managing directors or chief executive officers. New roles are effectively like data analyst, scientist, and the redundant role would be of a data entry clerk, right? A stable role would be something like a supply chain or logistics specialist. New role would be, you can think of something like a innovation professional or information security analyst. And then financial analyst's role is already becoming redundant, right? So going back to what I was mentioning earlier, the new kind of roles which are coming up are again, roles which involve learning about different kind of disciplines and how all of it comes together. So like earlier, if you were a finance professional, now a lot of computer science students have started going into finance because most of these trades are now done through algorithms which are created by these companies, right? So finance is coming up big together with computer science. Those boundaries are essentially getting dropped, while a job like a data entry clerk can easily be automated through some scanning systems, right? So essentially, this is what we need to, prepare our students for, that they really need to be mindful of, just not learning one certain skill, but essentially what I feel is that they really need to learn how to learn, because these job roles again will keep shifting. We can't really predict what kind of jobs we will be looking at. But we can certainly help them to learn. So jobs are essentially evolving from what used to be earlier a graphic designer or digital designer has now become a whole experience designer. Something who was just merely a project manager is a customer success manager now. Somebody who was just working on in the field of statistics earlier, is the job role for them, which is growing now, is of a data scientist, right? And like I said, 70% of these young people who we work with are going to enter workforce. This is a glimpse of what is happening in India. It's a report by EY. So new job roles which are going to come up in IT would be of, say, a VFX artist, data scientist, data architect, AI resource scientist, 3D modeling engineers, 3D designers, cloud architect. In automobile sector, the kind of job roles which are coming up would be of, say, a sustainability integration expert. We all heard the case of what happened with Volkswagen. The company is still struggling with that lawsuit. They did not really care of the kind of emissions their cars were making, and it was falsely reported. So sustainability has really become one of the key parameters for a lot of these big companies, and that's where a lot of jobs are going to come up. In textile, in apparel, data analyst or PLC maintenance specialist. So essentially these are some of the sectors where most of the job roles are going to change. And I don't know if you guys can read it. I can share the slides later in case if you guys want to go through what are some of these job roles I have listed for you guys to specifically look at. Again, what automation has led to is it has led to a disruption of the kind of skills which somebody needed earlier. And India again happens to be in top of this list where most of this disruption is going to happen. 5 ways I feel that the workforce is going to change in say next 5 years is that what we call as Generation Z is going to they've already started exploring what we call as gig economy. What that means is that students are more people are more interested to do small project-based work rather than sticking around to the same organization for 20-30 years, which was really the case earlier. The workforces are going to be more decentralized, so it doesn't matter, physical boundaries are getting diluted. You could be sitting in any part of the world and you could be working together on certain project. What people used to get motivated for working or going for a job, that is totally changed now. Earlier it used to just be about monetary benefits or money. Now students or people are actually seeking job satisfaction, or if they are really creating value or not. Artificial intelligence, algorithm, intelligent machines, they are going to again augment all the work that humans are already doing. So these are some of the ways workforce is going to change. In terms of, if I talk in terms of skills, the skill composition, let me actually show you the list of skills which would make a lot of sense. So skills like leadership, service orientation, social influence, managing others, emotional intelligence, creativity, entrepreneurship, innovation, these are some of the skills which are going to be at the center of all the jobs, right? So like I said, technical know-how is not going to be as important as some of these skills. Let me actually show you the list of 10 skills which World Economic Forum has listed as top skills that will be needed. So first skill is, read this, complex problem solving, critical thinking. There's a lot of buzzword around critical thinking, and that essentially is one of the top skills. And what critical thinking really means, we also experience. It's the ability to think from multiple perspectives on any problem. It could be anything, it could be a research area. Creativity, people management, coordinating with others, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, I feel, is going to be one of the top skills, which even these organizations are going to look at people who they are going to hire. Because a lot of people they're not very happy with their jobs these days, and emotional intelligence it's becoming much more important than ever it was. Judgment and decision making, service orientation, negotiation, cognitive flexibility. What cognitive flexibility essentially means is it's the flexibility to really adapt to new learning methods. Right? So these are some of the skills which are going to be at the center of what's going to happen. I don't spend time on this, but this is what the organizations across the world really realize, and SAP also essentially changed their model from where it used to be a little bit about knowing stuff like people used to perceive it as a test of your vocabulary in English. It shifted to being a test of your skills, essentially because of the same reasons how this skill shift has happened. I'm going to now show you a very So essentially, if I have to sum up, I can sum up with giving you these 4 C's of these skills: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, which is going to be at the center of anything your students are going to do in future. There are a few ways that I believe at this point, and these are very basic, sort of high-level, suggestions that some of you can incorporate to help your students in how things are changing. So I believe that schools, essentially should improve the way STEM education is delivered. So you need to be also mindful of a lot of upcoming fields that we spoke about. The schools should find a way. One good way is to introduce MOOC platforms and OOC, which is massive open online courseware. So a lot of universities across the world, like MIT and all, they've started, putting up their coursework for free. So some of the schools can look at adopting some of these methods. Interdisciplinary education, I think it's really important. You should encourage and allow students. I know CBSE allows schools to, allows students to not have these streams but have different disciplines together. Sometimes because of administrative challenge, school is not able to allow. So probably you can think in that direction and allow students to make different combination of these disciplines instead of just putting them into silos of commerce, sciences, humanities, and all of that. The method of the classroom, which was again talked about earlier, which I totally believe could work really best for students, is you should help them and teach them how to ask right questions instead of giving them right answers all the time, which could also happen if this is one of the way a lot of universities internationally how they deliver content is through flipped classrooms, where students are expected to do a lot of research before they get into a classroom, and mostly questions are encouraged and discussions are encouraged, and they're actually pushed to ask questions and they get open-ended assignments, which is, I think it's a great way for students to really learn how to learn. What I also think is important is schools. How many schools here have a full-fledged career counseling system as of now? Can I just see the raise of hands? Very few, right? So I think it's very important, and Mr. Vinay is going to also talk a little more about it, how Pathankot School is doing, and I thought it would be a great idea for us to share what Pathankot School is doing for their students in terms of career counseling. I think it's very important that all the schools must set up full-fledged career counseling system and really not assign it as a role to, say, a psychology teacher, but really invest in having career counselors, get them properly trained, expose students to really upcoming fields like liberal arts and sciences, have these experts talk to your students. What I also feel is that a lot of extracurricular activities are also discouraged at school, and we don't realize the kind of skills that students really develop. If you let a student pursue arts, fine arts, they improve on a skill of creativity. By sports, students really learn something like resilience, which I feel is going down drastically. Students, if you have students who are more into theater or music or performance spaces, they learn the skill of communication, right? So we underestimate the value of a lot of these activities when compared to academics. So I would advise that times are changing. How universities also now take students, that is also shifting. Earlier it was important, for you to get that 99%, but that time is changing. The time of skills, students really pick up being involved in all these extracurricular activities. It should be encouraged. You can take a lot of help from your alumni. Schools, I feel these are some of the very, very easy things to do, is that always be connected to the alumni, because they end up going into these universities or industries where a lot of your students might want to end up. be in touch with them, get them to your school, help them. And these are some of the things you can do very easily and immediately instead of putting in a lot of infrastructure. So yeah, that's my 2 bits on this topic. I would now invite Mr. Vinay to share how Partap is running their counseling services for students. That will give you guys a lot of insight into how you can also do it. And if you guys have any questions with the paucity of time, I think I'm going to be around if you guys want to have a conversation one-on-one. I'll be more than happy to do that. Thank you so much for listening very patiently. And I hope this was informative.
Thank you, Sandeep. But I feel that there was a lot of depth in the Sandeep's lecture. It's in one session it is difficult to grasp. So very good afternoon to all. I'll touch the main point which we are covering in the school curriculum. Can I have the point? So whenever I take my class, I usually start with the one shloka of this is Uddar apna aap kar, nij ko na girne de kabhi, nar aap hi hai mitra apna aap hi hai shatru. Mean we have all the power and we have all the abilities within us. Okay, it's just school is just a platform which is showing you the right kind of path on right time, so that you enlighten yourself for the next destination. So school is basically a platform which is trying to give the student as well as, because it is the educators which are giving the platform, it is the curriculum which are giving the platform to the student so that they will be get ready for the college and the university. So in our school we are trying in the class 8, we try to give the participation to the student in IIT program and in various other programs, like a lot of things to be covered. I'll touch the main point only. So we start with the class 8 combination of when the child has to decide in class 11 which subject he has to choose, and we provide them the information about the different combinations we can adopt for the future need. Then we cover the career talk on how to choose career option after class 10, and then we work on the skill building program for the team building and problem solving abilities, stress management, creativity are being organized by the school. And then in class, and I'm sorry, we are also conducting P-set, Sadiq is associated with college board, so it's a mother body for conducting P-set. So we are conducting P-set in our school, and in class 11 we are basically working on the timeline of the different countries and collect how the child has to pursue the application process, the comparison between the different countries, then application process of the different countries, when they have to go with which time duration they have to adopt for applying those universities, and then we cover the factors that are affecting the choosing of those universities. It may be the climatic factor, it may be the adaptability of the child in those universities, so that the child should be aware of during the class 11th and 12th about those selection which is there in the mind of the child. And we are using the platform like IC3, we are conducting individual session for the children, we are inviting to the universities for those sessions, so that at least the child should have the exposure of those areas which he is planning to pursue in the future. Then how he can entitle for that scholarship, and how he will be get the fund from the different agencies. We are working on that college essays also, and the session on the managing the personal financing. How the child, if the child go abroad, how he has to manage the finance, So where the fund will come from? So all these we are managing in the school, and we are very time management is very important for the child. So we are conducting session on time management. Basically we are building the life skill of the child, so that whichever profession he will go, he will be adjusted with those professions. So then we are conducting college fairs, we are conducting university fair, and of course we are preparing the children for the IELTS, TOEFLs, IC3 and etc. And we are facilitating a lot of research work activities during class 11th and the rest of it. I am Samak with the group. These are some success stories of the Pathankot schools. So this is the success story of Pathankot Dev Singh. Right now he is studying in Delhi University, scoring 98.4%. And two of our students, we have a lot of success stories. We have, with the passage of giving in the passage of time in mind, we have covered only very few. So two of our students, they are already in qualified CA foundations. Then these are the two children. They are the academic topper of last batch from class 10th as well as 12th of Pathankot district. They have been recognized by the Education Minister of Punjab. Then Akshay Singh, like a few of the members, they are aware of regarding that. He has been backed with a very good, handsome amount of scholarship from the foreign university. Then Daniel Kavi, he also got selected in the Michigan State University. Then Tasneem, he has also got selected with the University of Brown, University of British Columbia. So by this, I'll thank you all of you for coming to the
I thank you personally for this great session. Thank you.
The capacity to learn is a gift. The ability to learn is a skill. The willingness to learn is a choice, as said by Brian Herbert. Mr. Jim McLaughlin, co-chair IC3 conference, will highlight on way forward with IC3 Institute and 2020 annual IC3 conference.
So it's been quite a day. I think many of you are energized but exhausted at the same time. And I hope exhausted in all of the best ways. You know, we have, I just want to say for this closing piece, and Simona, I think we'll save the videos. It's most important for me to just express my gratitude and admiration for Partap World School and the entire school family here. So if you can join me in a round of applause for Partap World School family for hosting such an amazing forum. You know, Sunny, Vishal, Mahajan, you know, the just pillars of the movement, and all of the counselors, the teachers here, all of the volunteers, the students. How about our MCs today? Thank you so much. Our performers. I also want to thank all of our speakers. Everyone who contributed experience and knowledge. And for many of you, this was your first experience with any kind of IC3 event. And for many of you who perhaps were at the annual conference, maybe this is your first regional forum. We also want to hear your perspective. So make sure that in future, you yourselves are submitting session proposals. We want to hear what is happening in your schools. We want to learn from you. So this is truly a knowledge sharing exercise. You know, I want to call a special attention to our university representatives who made the trip here. You know, having spent more than 15 years representing various universities in the U.S. and doing recruitment, it's hard to see how much goes into this and how much love and passion and sweat and tears actually, time away from home. But the university representatives that are here with us today, you know, recognize that. You know, these are the folks who believe in you and believe in your students. So huge, huge praise to our university reps who've made the trip. to be here. Thank you so much. And to all of you, who took the opportunity to come to a regional forum, perhaps not exactly knowing, what the day would hold. Throughout the day, we've had a lot of conversations, and this concept of lifelong learning. We started the day there, we're also ending it there, and it doesn't. Our conversations and our learnings don't stop with today. The question was posed by many of you: how do we carry this discussion forward? Where do we go from here? How do we continue this? I hope the school delegates and the university delegates were not only taking in the content and the information that was presented here, but that you also were connecting with each other, and that you can lean on one another for support. And IC3 has never been about competition between the universities, between the schools. It's always been about collaboration. So, this is something that you will see and continue to see moving forward. I am going to highlight a little bit about the annual IC3 conference taking place at the end of August. Though I'll spend most of the conclusion talking about the Institute, the next 10 minutes or so. The annual IC3 conference, so imagine the energy that we experience today and multiply that by 10 or 12 or 15. That kind of energy, that we saw here is really what will be carried forward in international, truly international context in Delhi at the end of August. This is the 5th annual IC3 conference. So it's a milestone. It truly is a milestone for the IC3 movement, and for counseling in every school is the mission. And that is truly why we are here. The Taj Palace is the venue in Delhi. It's an amazing venue. We're expecting 1,200 plus educators, world changers like you. It's certainly going to be groundbreaking. We hope that many of you will be able to join us and continue that conversation. There are pre-conference events that run from workshops for both high school delegates and actually for our university colleagues, the first ever pre-conference university seminar that will be taking place as well. So the professional development is there, student fairs, symposium, an opportunity not only to network, but really to expand the knowledge that was just begun here today. A presidential forum that will bring together more than 300 senior leaders from the education community in India and around the world. So for principals, school management, school leadership, we want to see you in this environment, bringing the thought leadership. What is coming next for schools and for our students? On this slide, I'm going to highlight scholarships. It's important to understand that IC3 is a truly open access platform, right? And you can see the commitment that's here today for school delegates. It's completely free to attend a regional forum. In addition to that, IC3 itself will fund up to 100 scholarships to the annual conference. You can nominate colleagues. You yourselves can apply for these scholarships. IC3 and its sponsors will fund, in many cases, full travel expenses, in some cases partial travel expenses as well. So if your school doesn't have the funding set aside for professional development of this kind, please apply for a scholarship. Our inclusion, diversity, and scholarship committee really wants to receive your applications. We want to hear from you, ready to see you. So the support is there. Please take advantage of that. We started also the day by talking a little bit about how we're trying to bring positive attention to this field of career college counseling. So we have started the first of its kind awards for counseling, career and college counseling, and we do recognize in a pretty large format excellence in school-based counseling and counseling-based recruitment practices from our university colleagues. So, these are ways that we are putting a positive spotlight on this critical function within schools. The 2020 annual IC3 conference, much like what we're doing in the regional forums, we couldn't do it without the support of our sponsors. So it's important that we recognize them. There will be additional opportunities for institutions and organizations to participate in sponsorship. And actually it makes things like the scholarships and these events possible. So we can't thank enough the sponsors who really are investing in empowering schools. Now to the most important aspect of the conclusion. And I hope that we will see all of you at the annual IC3 conference at the end of August in Delhi. But the IC3 Institute is one of the most critical ways that our school-based delegates here can carry this forward and continue the learning. If you are one of the delegates who wasn't able to raise his or her hand to say that, yes, we have a full-time career and college counselor at the school, if you've not yet reached that, all right, but that is the goal. Okay, or even if it's not at this time, but you're looking to bring more resources to your school, the IC3 Institute is a one-year-long certificate training program that is free for school-based delegates. Okay, and that's a commitment from IC3. I know that sometimes there's this misconception that because it's free, there's what is the real value? But for us, it's if we are to train 100,000 professionals to come into this field, our commitment is to make this completely accessible. So at this stage, the IC3 Institute is training through a one-year-long certificate program of counselors in career and college counseling specifically. Last year, in 2019, we graduated the very first cohort of IC3 Institute students and scholars. This year, we welcome the second cohort. Okay, and I hope, and I would venture a guess that our next cohort, potentially some of those members are sitting here with us today. I want to just come back. To be clear, the Institute itself is predominantly based on online instruction. But there are 4 one-week residential training components that take place at Indian universities throughout the year. So this opportunity not only to learn from IC3 Institute faculty members from around the world, they could be from universities, many of them are coming from schools themselves, are presenting this knowledge in intensive online modules that are then enforced by these one-week in-person residential trainings. So we are now accepting applications for the 2020-2021 cohort. And that might seem like it's fairly far off. We'll start that in September, but it's not. Think about this now. We are here to help advocate for you. If you're principals, if you're school leaders, encourage your teachers, your counselors who are balancing an academic load and shouldering the burden of career and college counseling. Give them the time. Invest in them. And as a result, you're investing in your students. So this is the most important message for us to carry forward today. And as I stand here, I'm so encouraged and honored to be here with all of you. And from this point forward, yes, we have a lot of work to do, but I think we're energized, by being here together and carrying this forward. And once again, thank you so much to the Partap World School family for hosting this wonderful event. And now we won't stop until we have counseling in every school. And that's the call. That's the call that we're making today. So we are finishing today with a networking event. And I know some of our colleagues are headed off, they've got flights and all of these kinds of things. So I want to be sure that we leave some time to connect and make sure that we're exchanging information and all of that. So, at this stage, thank you so much, and we're looking forward to carrying this forward with you all.
Thank you, sir. I extend my heartfelt thanks to all the members present today for giving their precious time to this conference. Thanks a lot for your support and cooperation. Special thanks to Mr. Jim McLaughlin, co-chair IC3 conference, and all the speakers, university and organization delegates for their participation and knowledge sharing.
Now, I invite our director, Mr. Vishal Mahajan and Mr. Sunny Mahajan, Principal Ms. Shubhra and Mr. Jim McLaughlin, co-chair IC3 conference, to hand over the token of appreciation to all speakers, organization and university delegates. Please, audience, give a huge round of applause for
Mr. Harpreet Singh, Ashoka University of India. Mr. Sandeep Saraswal from College Board, USA.
Ladies and gentlemen, please keep the round of applause rolling.
Ms. Asma Break Singh from Education, USA.
I have to publicly say when I read her profile, I was truly immense and honored, and I felt really proud of the contributions in the field of career and counsel. It's really true. Hats off. I want you to share your experience with the audience, please.
So, we're just all very happy. The university delegates and all of our speakers have also have bonded very well at this regional forum. So I'm very glad for that experience too. And I'm so glad to meet so many dedicated school counselors. I studied Masters of Education, Psychology of Education in England, and I was very, very sure that I was going to come back home to all of us to make a difference here. So we have lots to do. Let's just keep doing that. Thank you so much.
Mr. Jimmy Heavenfed from University of Guelph, Canada. Mr. Raheem Babur from the Institute of Marconi, Milan, Paris, and London. Miss Natasha Goyal and Miss Nani Katyal from Lakshya University, India. Guys, please take a round of applause for them.
Ms. Rinki Partap from McMaster University, Canada.
Must tell you, many people have flown directly from USA and Canada across the globe directly for this forum, which means a lot for us, for giving your precious time for this conference. You being a global citizen, you will take back good memories from Pathankot. I'm very hopeful.
I'll be very honest, I really underestimated this event. These two people, Sunny and Vishal, they took care of us. I mean, I'm short of words. They took care of the minutest details, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Mr. Vinay Kumar, Career Counselor for Partap Schools.
That was surprise, because you deserve it. I must tell everyone, she has been assisting from day one since 1 year. We have been onto this program, and throughout the year, Mr. Jim, Simona, Ashka, Ganesh, I have a lot of names to say, but they really all coordinated very well for the event. That is why it's a grand success. Thank you so much.
I now humbly request Mr. Jim McLaughlin, co-chair IC3, to accept a token of appreciation. Please do give a huge round of applause. Please do join us, our workout team. Thank you everyone very much.
Just a minute for a group photograph, please. Yeah. And once we click the group photograph, I would request the audience to give a standing ovation to the university and organizational delegates who made the day, who enriched you with their content and enlightened this grand speed of life, the knowledge of life that we travel all across. Please stay up. Bonus for the university. And you're not as Bollywood stars, all of you, trust me. Because you are yourself a star in your own way. Thank you. And a big shout out for all the student volunteers as well. And teacher volunteers.